You check your phone 200 times a day. You don't remember most of it, but the platforms do. They've been profiling you, shaping you, even addicting you without your consent. Social media platforms are built on feedback loops that are designed to train you like a little lab rat. Every scroll just rewires your brain, and not metaphorically speaking, literally. The result is shorter attention spans, high anxiety, and the quiet erosion of your sense of self. But instead of giving you the 500th TED Talk about how your phone's melting your brain, I want to talk about something a little bit more subtle, the more quietly devastating aspects of social media. The loss of individuality through the absence of silence and focus. So I recently took a 2-month break from social media, and I was posting a little bit on Instagram here and there, but I pretty much entirely cut out my consumption of social media, and it changed my life. And I want to make a video and share what I've learned.
I became dangerously addicted to TikTok, where like I'm at the gym, lifting a weight with one arm, like scrolling with the other. I'm walking on the treadmill, I'm scrolling. I realized that it was infecting my brain with not only too much information, but also like a lot of bad information.
I'm getting to a point where I can just kind of doom scroll for hours and hours and hours, especially at work whenever there's downtime.
I just spend too much time on it, mate. Simple as that. I feel like sometimes I don't even know my own thoughts anymore.
Remember when boredom was just part of the day? Waiting in line, sitting at a red light, laying in bed with your thoughts, or, being a kid, laying in the grass and just staring up and watching the clouds change. Now, silence has become rare and extremely uncomfortable. There's a study from 2014 that is genuinely insane. So scientists put people in a room and told them to just sit there quietly for 10 minutes, like no music, no phones, no nothing. And a significant chunk of people, especially the men, chose to electrocute themselves rather than spend time alone sitting with their thoughts. Because silence to them was worse than physical pain. I mean, think about it. Like, when was the last time you were actually bored? Truly bored? Or alone with your thoughts without a device around? If you sat in silence right now for 5 minutes, no phone, no music, no device, would it feel peaceful or unbearable? Most of us don't even realize how much noise we have in our lives until it's gone. I started noticing this when I began to have panic attacks at night, especially last year. I've had this throughout my whole life, but it got really, really bad in 2024. And as soon as I turned off the TV and I turned off the lights and I put my noise machine on and I put my earplugs in, that was when I would start to panic. And the only part of my day when I was truly alone with my thoughts was at night, in the dark, in silence. And that's when all my anxiety thoughts just crept in like a monster under my bed. I realized that my brain was so plugged in that I started to associate silence with death. So needless to say, I realized it was a bit of a problem. That's when I knew that I needed to start setting some intentional, healthy habits throughout the day to help me feel better from the inside out. And part of that was getting medicated. I took a ton of different steps that I'll get into later in the video about how I cured my social media addiction. But since we're on the topic of routine, I first want to thank today's sponsor, Live It Up. You can use code YouTube15 for 15% off your first order. As you can see in this receipt here, I've been a paying customer for over a year and a half after switching away from a competitor that was like twice the price. I have a lot of food aversions and I hate cooking. So unfortunately, getting diversity of produce in my diet is extremely difficult for me. And I've just always really liked starting my day with a green powder, and Live It Up has just been my favorite ever since I tried it. It's a great, easy way for me to get hydration first thing in the morning, get some nutrients I normally wouldn't consume from my diet, and just set a healthy habit for the day. I'm not going to make any huge claims about like how this is going to cure your bloating or anything like that, but when I drink it, it just makes me feel better. It's designed to be gentle on your stomach. It doesn't have any chalky or chunky texture. It's super smooth, and Live It Up has over 20 organic vegetables. It's full of vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants, and it comes out to just $1.33 per serving. I like that they conduct third-party testing, but the price is the real factor for me. My fiance and I read a ton of comprehensive articles comparing Live It Up with others on the market, and this just checked all of our boxes, especially for the price. Shipping's free, it's really quick, and we've never had an issue with any of our orders. So if you're interested in Live It Up, you can click the link in the description to get 15% off your first order of Super Greens. When we think about our daily routine and healthy habits, we don't ever structure time in our day to look at social media, and yet it takes up such a huge portion of our lives every single day. And social media doesn't just fill time, it replaces thought. So in my opinion, we're not bored, we're just overloaded and overstimulated. And it's hard to stop even when you know it's a problem because we're just addicted to it at this point.
Social media can exploit the parts of our brain that get us to connect with other humans. Our brains get us to make those human connections by releasing dopamine in the reward pathway, which is the feel-good neurotransmitter. And what happens with certain types of social media apps is that they release so much dopamine in the reward pathway that they essentially become the equivalent of an addictive drug.
The company's leadership knows how to make Facebook and Instagram safer, but won't make the necessary changes because they have put their astronomical profits before people.
These platforms are designed to be addictive, and they're not going to do anything to make them safer. So unfortunately, it's up to us to learn how to set boundaries and take back control. And it's really not about quitting altogether. You know, I get a lot of comments on my influencer culture videos about how we need to just ban social media, we need to delete all the apps. But especially for people who are Gen Z or Gen Alpha, you know, being on social media is how you connect with your peers. It is how you feel culturally relevant, and people can be bullied if they are not able to keep up with that culturally. So it's not about taking such an extreme measure as completely quitting social media altogether, unless you want to do that. And if so, pop off. I'm not going to stop you. But it's about setting boundaries and really being intentional about how we're consuming it. A 2022 study from the University of Bath found that just 1 week off social media significantly improved people's well-being, reduced anxiety, and made them feel noticeably happier. I definitely don't think any of us needed a study to tell us that, but if we all know that we feel better without social media, then why are we still so addicted to scrolling? If you've been struggling to read books, stay off your phone, or even finish a single task without scrolling or switching apps, there's nothing wrong with you and you aren't alone. This is the result of a system that is working exactly as it was built. Short form content like TikTok or Reels trains your brain to expect constant novelty. So a new sound, a new face, a new joke, a new idea, you know, every 3 to 5 seconds. And so over time, your brain adapts to this, which is called attentional fragmentation. Your brain gets so used to just switching context constantly that as a result, sustained focus starts to feel uncomfortable or boring or itchy or even impossible. And that kind of rapid fire stimulation changes your attention span. So then we start to crave that level of variety even when we're not scrolling at all. When I asked you guys in a community post, you know, what your relationship with social media is and how it's affected your identity, somebody wrote, "I'm 50, didn't grow up with social media. I've noticed that I never read books anymore. It happened gradually and I can feel how it's changed my brain. I find it hard to concentrate on a book, attention span is greatly reduced, and I used to sit and read for hours when I was a teenager. I'm very sad about that. I'm trying to read more and get back into it." So this is something that affects all of us. It's not just kids who don't know better. A study from the University of California found that it takes an average 23 minutes to refocus after an interruption. So when you're constantly scrolling and distracted, your brain becomes completely unable to do any kind of deep work. So if you find yourself jumping between tabs, grabbing your phone in the middle of a task, or abandoning long form anything, it's not about discipline, it's conditioning. And that conditioning started very early. Research conducted by Microsoft back in 2015 found that the average attention span of Gen Z individuals was only about 8 seconds, which is 4 seconds less than that of millennials. And that was conducted well before the invention of TikTok. And it's not just our attention spans that are getting hijacked. Social media really distorts our sense of identity. And we're not just watching people who are out and about authentically living their lives. You know, we're comparing ourselves to carefully edited versions of people we will never be. If you follow celebrities, you're seeing people with private chefs and glam squads and photographers and makeup artists. And, you know, their literal job is to look perfect. Or if perhaps you compare yourself to your peers, it might even feel worse to you because their lifestyle is attainable, but it's just out of reach. When we're exposed to curated highlight reels every single day, our brains don't register that that's edited. It sees it as a standard that we aren't meeting. So instead of growing, you compare. Instead of doing, you scroll. And then that endless loop of comparison slowly erodes your confidence, your originality, and your drive. Another person in my community post wrote, "The loss of self, in my experience, came from an addiction to social media that had me chasing perfection when in reality, my authentic self was the most special version of me that I could be." Oh, that made me a little bit emotional. I hardly use social media now, but I used to scroll through Instagram models. Damn, that one really got me. But I used to scroll through Instagram models for hours, wanting to be born again in a body that looked like theirs. Since removing myself from toxic social media circles and heavily limited my usage of it, I have seen the impact it had on me. Because now that I choose my aesthetic and style based on what I love, I can see how younger me was missing out on the freedom that comes with simply choosing things for ourselves. Constant ads, photoshopping, new products, etc. It becomes an echo chamber in a sense where you don't even realize how much of your personality is derived from it all. That's exactly what I'm trying to say with this video. Perfect. Instead of striving to be the best version of yourself, so many of us are stuck on a loop of trying to be the best version of someone else. trying to be that girl on your hot girl walk with your clean girl makeup during hot girl summer, hustling like a girl boss in a coastal cowgirl outfit while you do girl math over girl dinner. Another subscriber commented, one of the reasons I'm not on social media is because of the loss of identity. Everyone's looking their perfect self, having perfect opinions. If you don't believe in XYZ, then sorry, you're not that girl, following celebrities in the name of trends, and to even use language constructed around it. It made me feel smaller, lesser, a constant crippling thought that, why didn't I have this exposure while growing up? Why haven't I achieved so much? And another person wrote, when I first got really into short form content, my monthly spending skyrocketed. All of a sudden, I felt compelled to own more, be more. I started caring more about owning things than being out in the world creating experiences or being around other people. Recently, I made a decision to take a step back and everything started to feel better. It's like I was pulled into this void of mindless spending for a time period. Scary, but I feel better being more aware. Especially with the rise of girl aesthetics, countless products are associated with each type of aesthetic that one must own in order to fit the mold. Hailey Bieber capitalized on this concept with the introduction of the strawberry girl. By posting a TikTok tutorial on strawberry makeup, suddenly this new aesthetic was invented just in time for the launch of her berry-themed peptide lip treatment. The strawberry girl was more of a micro trend, but the long-lasting clean girl aesthetic has stayed in the zeitgeist and idealizes all sorts of products, from aloe workout sets to matcha lattes. Aside from ruining our bank accounts, the constant changing aesthetics and beauty trends just completely distorts the way we see ourselves. One subscriber wrote, as of the last few months, I can't tell what I look like anymore. It sounds a bit weird, but I literally don't know how to physically see myself. I can't tell if I think I look pretty or ugly or average. Same for other people, mostly also women. I don't know what I genuinely think is attractive versus what I've become used to seeing as attractive, like plump lips, long lashes, full cheeks, etc. I don't know if these are features I'm appreciative of or drawn to naturally, or if I've been trained to notice them. I've only realized that I can no longer make this distinction because I've become desensitized to Instagram face, and now I don't think anything is beautiful. I don't know what to think about how anybody looks. I'm full of doubt about my own judgment and perception. Oh, this is so interesting. So I can totally relate to this. Back when I had a beauty channel, I got a couple comments, one that really stuck in my head, and it was like, you shouldn't even have a beauty channel because your lips are so thin. There's no point in you putting on lip products. And that one stuck with me because I did all this close-up footage filming a lot of B-roll and application clips on lips so you could see how it looked. And ever since I got that comment, all I could think about was how small my lips are and how people are thinking like you shouldn't even be doing this because your lips are small. And over time, I started getting real close to getting lip filler many, many times. And I just kept thinking all the time about how thin my lips look. If I saw my thumbnail on my YouTube channel, my lips look thin. If I, filmed an Instagram reel showing a new line of lip glosses, all I could think about was how thin my lips were. And then as I started communicating online that I had thin lips, people with thinner lips than I had started communicating that they were angry because I don't have thin lips. And so it just ended up being this like jumbled, confusing mess of my self-perception as it relates to what the beauty standards are versus the reality. And who gives a shit about what my lip size and shape is? The point is that social media can massively distort the way that we see ourselves. And, growing up, when I was in college, I never thought about how plump my lips were. I just loved putting on lip gloss and going out. And now it's about, oh my God, are there wrinkles or like, how's the texture of my face and my lip size and shape? And it's just, who cares? Who cares? And that's why when we do deep work, real effort starts to feel pointless or even intimidating because you're constantly reminded of how far you think you are from somebody else's finish line, from somebody else's identity entirely. Your brain gets overridden into focusing on things that simply are not attainable for most of us. And then if you add in the hustle culture layer, all of this gets even harder because we've been taught that our worth is tied to our output and that the rest is just laziness and that slow progress means failure. So when you're constantly seeing other people succeed, or more like succeed, it doesn't just make you feel like behind, it makes you feel like you've already lost. It's like trying to run on a treadmill that never stops while everybody else makes it look easy, because growth doesn't come from comparison. It comes from friction. Gen Z, Gen Alpha, or any of us who regularly use social media or AI, have grown accustomed to immediate answers or instant gratification, leaving very little room for thought, critical thinking, or real effort. And I think the term, especially critical thinking, is used a lot as an insult when we're discussing politics online. But I think we have to take a really deep look at ourselves and understand that all of us have this problem. It's not just the right or the left, depending on what side you're on, we are all suffering from this with our social media usage, all of us. When everything is instant, answers, entertainment, validation, everything, real effort starts to feel completely uncomfortable. I mean, really think about it. How can we become the people that we truly want to be if we're just wired to have things spoon-fed to us every few seconds? How can we find our own personal identity and opinions if we're just hearing everybody else's thoughts other than our own? Or we're worried about being perceived as cringy so we don't express ourselves authentically. You have a question? Google it. You want to be entertained? Swipe. You want validation? Post. Want comfort? Scroll until you're numb. Everything is optimized to be fast, easy, and right now. And it works. It works so well that real effort starts to feel foreign. Waiting feels uncomfortable, I think probably for all of us. Not knowing something immediately feels wrong. But effort or hard work is when growth happens. There isn't a quick fix to being the person that you want to be. There's no quick glow up to be the best version of yourself. What I came to realize in my time off from social media is that real effort means doing the things that are hard, slow, and boring. And it means not having all of the answers right away. It means being okay with silence and choosing long-term growth over short-term hits of dopamine. I just feel like there's no room left in our brains for our own voice when it's just constantly filled with other people's. And the thing is, all of the world's most successful people know this. Microsoft boss and billionaire Bill Gates goes to a cabin for a week, twice a year, to be alone and do deep work uninterrupted, an activity that he calls Think Week. You know how you do your best thinking in the shower? It's like that, but for a full week. Laura Stack, president and CEO of the consulting firm The Productivity Pro, says, I check myself into a third space, a local hotel up the road every quarter and write for 48 hours. I've published 8 books in 14 years using this approach. Most of us don't have the time or resources to do that, but we can take inspiration from this principle. Many of the world's most successful CEOs literally block off a couple hours on their calendar just to sit in silence and think without any devices. So if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for me. Social media isn't all bad. It's an incredible place to connect with people all around the world, hear different opinions, be exposed to places you never get to visit, form real communities, build businesses, share information, so on and so forth. So it's not about just logging off and quitting and going off the grid altogether, unless you want to do that, but rather reframing your relationship, being intentional, and setting boundaries. So here are some of the tips that worked for me. Okay, the first one is disable notifications. I don't think I've ever had push notifications for social media, but if you haven't done this, do it right now. Like, pause this video, turn off all your push notifications for socials. And then when you're working, put your phone on Do Not Disturb. If Do Not Disturb isn't enough for you, I know it's not enough for me, put your phone in another room, or at least like across the room when you're working, so that if you go to reach for your phone, you would have to physically get up to go get it. That for me is literally the only way that I can do work without checking for my phone and scrolling. It's the only thing that works for me. If you do need to use your phone for the type of work that you do, you can download apps that lock you out of social media apps for like a specific time period. I'm not sure of any of them off the top of my head because I just put my phone in the other room. But if you just look up, social media blocker apps, I'm sure you'll find a bunch. Try developing hobbies that require you to put your phone down. So for me, I just started playing video games with my fiance. I started gardening and playing guitar, and I can't use my phone for any of those activities. And that has been super helpful for just getting away from social media. Also, you can try a dopamine fast. So just try for 3 days quitting social media, and then, check in with yourself and notice how you feel. This was a suggestion by my fiance, John. So try rebuilding your home screen. Put all of your utilities like notes, calendar, mail, etc. on your first page, and then hide social media apps deep in folders, like in the back of your phone, so it's not super easily accessible. Really commit to a mindset shift. Have a conversation with yourself, and I mean it. Sit down without any devices and really think about how you want to spend your time when you look back on your life. Like, if you were to find out that you had a terminal disease, would you be proud of how you spent your time? Would you want to do anything over and do anything differently? That's the question that I asked when I watched the show Dying for Sex. It profoundly affected me and profoundly made me reflect on my life and how I've been spending my life and how I want to spend my time. While I had already set social media boundaries prior to watching that show, it really brought up a larger conversation with myself around hustle culture and just being more intentional with my time and being more intentional with my fiance and with my dog. I still spend time scrolling mindlessly, but really my focus is on enriching my life with the things that I really love or the things that I want to get better at, when I have a moment to myself. And remember that offline is where the real growth happens. I think that's a really important key aspect for me. I set time limits. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday are the days when I'm allowed to scroll freely. I also have a great no phone ritual at night. So for an hour, I will just go outside with Thumper and I'll lay on our little beds together and no phones, no devices, and we just sit in silence. And I just find that it's a beautiful way for me to be more in touch with Thumper and give him a massage and connect with him. And you know, on the nights when I bring my phone out there, I'm not as connected to him. And it's a really important ritual and we just look up at the stars together and it's beautiful. And it doesn't feel as beautiful when my phone's present. I'm not gonna lie, in the beginning it was really hard. Like when you try to sit in silence, it's gonna feel gross at first and it feels like itchy, you know? You're just like, ugh, it feels uncomfortable. You're gonna wanna pick up your phone. You're gonna think that you're failing, but you're not. It's just you rewiring your brain, like a nicotine craving, but for overstimulation. You know what I mean? Also suggest deleting any non-essential apps from your phone. So I haven't had Snapchat in like over a decade. I deleted LinkedIn, Twitter, and Threads from my phone because they just didn't add any value to my life. I don't even think I have a Threads or a Twitter account anymore. But I just really thought about, okay, what are the social media apps that actually do add value to my life? For me, it was TikTok, Instagram, and Reddit. And then YouTube, I don't really count as social media because that is pretty much only a net positive for me. So I don't even kind of consider that as part of the social media sphere. But you know, I just limited it to those few apps because what I found was that when I was sitting down and I would reach for my phone to scroll, I would just start scrolling through apps that I didn't even use. Like once I kind of got to the end of Instagram or like got to whatever the end of TikTok, then I would go to LinkedIn. Who the hell wants to go to LinkedIn? You know what I mean? So just like delete whatever you can. Also, I have to be super transparent about this. The biggest tip that I have for social media, if you are having a lot of anxiety and issues with self-worth and depression and scrolling addiction, consider medication. So I started 5 milligrams of Lexapro back in February and it changed my life. Like I am a different person. I was so scared for so many years because everybody talks about side effects and weight gain and worse depression. And I was like, I don't even want to deal with that headache. I'd been in therapy for many, many years. I've tried working with coaches to help heal my nervous system and do EFT tapping. And I've tried everything. I've tried everything except medication. And it got to the point in December of 2024, I was at a hotel in Miami and I had a panic attack in the shower and I threw up and I almost passed out. And I was just like, this is it. This has to be like the point where my life turns around. And I just decided, you know what? Fuck it. Let's try it. I'm going to try 5 milligrams of Lexapro and it changed my life. I cannot say enough good things about it. I genuinely feel like a different person. I'm like pre-Lexapro Kate or post-Lexapro Kate. And I just feel so much more myself, so much more confident, so much more comfortable. Even like when I get negative comments online, now they just roll off my back. And I cannot tell you how much more resilient I am, how much more positive I am. And I never thought that I was someone who had depression. I always thought that I had high anxiety, but I never thought I was depressed. And now that I have had my brain chemicals adjusted a little bit, I could cry thinking about how desperately I wish I could go back in time and start Lexapro. I didn't realize that it could be for someone like me. Sometimes we see so much negativity online and we just get that aspect stuck in our brains, but I wanted to share a positive in case that you've been considering it as well. So bringing it back to the video, all this to say, when I started Lexapro, I immediately noticed myself wanting to scroll less and I was kind of confused, so I looked into it. And SSRIs work by increasing serotonin in the brain. But it can also have indirect effects on the dopamine system. So specifically, it can help reduce the intensity of cravings and impulses, which could lead to a lessened urge to just, you know, compulsively scroll through social media for dopamine rewards. That's what I think happened there. And that honestly was the number one biggest thing that affected my social media use. Also, everybody should do this. Curate your social media feeds ruthlessly. If you see a video or a creator you don't like, click the not interested button so the algorithm learns that you don't want that kind of content. And you can do that on every single app. I made separate TikTok accounts for all the different types of content that I like to watch. I rarely consume influencer content unless it's research for a YouTube video. So I have a completely separate account for that so it doesn't mess up my algorithm. I have different accounts for like ASMR and cooking videos, cute dog videos, you know, that's like my comfort content. And then I have my separate account for influencer scrolling and anything that I don't want to see on a regular basis. And the benefit of this is that if you watch any kind of influencer content, like with ads or commission-based links, TikTok or other apps will just serve you that content like endlessly. So my main TikTok account, the one that I talked about with like ASMR and all that, that doesn't have as many ads. There's not as many commission-based videos on my feed, but my influencer algorithm is full of it. So when you get really specific and choosy about your social media feeds, it can just automatically help with all of that sense of self and you know, all the negativity that comes along with it. And at least I know on TikTok, you can go to your settings and click refresh your feed, and that will just reset the algorithm. So if you're just constantly seeing like weird videos or just ad after ad after ad, you can reset your algorithm and then you can just rebuild it. In that same vein, unfollow all unnecessary accounts and be really ruthless about it, even if it means unfollowing me. You know, every few months I clean out my feeds and I just kind of think about, okay, what's the content that's actually adding value to my life? I used to follow a lot of snark subreddits and like reality TV subreddits, celebrity gossip accounts, like drama tea channels and stuff like that, just to get ideas for YouTube. And I didn't realize it at the time, but it was really negatively impacting my life. I ended up muting all snark subreddits, unfollowing all the tea channels and everything. And I just find that I'm happier, I'm more positive. Most importantly, I'm a lot less quick to judge. I'm a lot more generous with my interpretation of what people are saying. And I find that what I learned through snark subreddits and reality TV subreddits is those give people the least generous interpretation of something. So if somebody says something online that could be potentially construed or, you know, interpreted in different ways, they will take the most negative, most judgmental perspective on that. I don't want to be like that. I want to have more of a positive, generous interpretation of people. And, you know, following drama channels or judgmental content creators or something like that, that really actually affects you. And I want the opposite in my life. I want peace. I want peace. That's all. I just want to be happy. I want a quiet, peaceful life. And similarly, don't read the comments, or especially don't engage with comment sections. If you find yourself, you know, disagreeing with someone and wanting to jump in, I get really irritated when I'm like arguing with people or arguing with bots online, and it's not worth it. Like, so often I will comment on like a political post and then I'll get into a disagreement with someone. And at the end of the day, only like 5% of the time have I changed someone's mind. And instead I'm left with stress sweats and having wasted my entire day. For what? Also, set time limits. So what I do is I set a 30-minute alarm for after I wake up, and that's my allotted time that I have to scroll before I start my day. So luckily I'm not a snoozer. Like, as soon as my alarm is awake, I'm awake. But I'm not the kind of person who could just jump out of bed and, you know, with a pep in my step. I need slow mornings and I need built-in time for relaxing and scrolling. So those are all my tips. Let us know in the comment section what I missed and what's really helped you so that we can all have a little less social media in our lives. And just to wrap it up here, social media isn't all evil. It's just really loud, and we get to choose how much of it we let into our lives. So the goal is not to go offline forever. It's just to come back to ourselves and really remember what's important in life. So wherever you are, I hope you're doing well. Thank you so much for watching this video, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Yay!